Hello and welcome to this vlog. I think this is the intro. If I have a little bit of a lisp, it's because I have my retainers in because I'm about to go to bed and I keep not filming this. I honestly can't remember if I have filmed an intro or not. At this point, we're 2 weeks almost into December and I have finished 2 books and started, I think, 2 others. So I figured, I should probably give an update and maybe start the video. That said, if you want to see my TBR for this video, go see a previous video. I'll try to link it up here where I selected my TBR based off of the prompts for the Reindeer Readathon. It's a lot of books. I think I selected a total of 9 books, and then if I get to the prompt slaying it, it will be 10 books. I don't know that I'm going to get there, but we'll see this month. Like I said, I finished 2 books. So I finished The Christmas Appeal, which was kind of a short Christmas book. It's a sequel to The Appeal by Janice Hallett. I thought it was really fun. And it wasn't super complicated, but it was about 200 pages or less than 200 pages. So, you're not going to get something super complicated. It was fun. It made me laugh. I think I rated it 4 stars. It's really like a 3.5 to me. But if you just want like a fun, light, cozy Christmas mystery, I thought it was a lot of fun. And it wasn't overly Christmassy. I feel like the problem with other Christmas books that I've tried to read is that everything is Christmas. Everything's about Christmas. There's nothing in there that's not about Christmas, and it's just too much Christmas. Like, I love Christmas, but it's just overwhelmingly Christmassy. But this one, they're putting on a play around Christmas time. The play has nothing to do with Christmas. It's Jack and the Beanstalk, but there is a Santa that comes out in the end, and there's a potential murder mystery happening. So it was just fun, kind of interesting to read. This book is written like The Appeal, where it's written in emails, text messages, things like that, instead of the usual prose that we get most books written in. So it's just kind of a fun change of pace. The second book that I finished was Save the Cat Writes a Novel. This is a book that I actually started reading last month, but I didn't get super far into it, but I was trying to do NaNoWriMo, and that's why I was reading this. And I read far enough to give me some ideas for outlining a novel, but I did go back and reread that section and then finish it because I felt like it was cheating to have already read a good chunk of it. So I was like, well, if I just reread this, then it's fine. Because I feel like for a challenge like this where you're getting points and you're in a group, you really should be reading the entire book, I think. I'm not sure if it's in the rules anywhere, but I just feel like that's probably how it should be. It's kind of hard to rate that book because I am new to novel writing and I'm doing it just kind of for fun. Was it useful? Yes. Is it like the best way to do things? I have no idea. So I gave it 4 stars just because it was written well, it was easy to read, it was understandable, and it's just an interesting book, but I don't have a whole lot more to say about it than that at the moment. The books that I have started reading are Empire of Storms. I am listening to this as an audiobook, so I started it earlier this month, and I've just been listening to it on my commute to work and from work and anywhere I'm going while I'm cleaning the house, while I'm putting on makeup and doing my hair in the morning, whatever. I've been listening to it. I think I still have about 7.5 hours left, so I should definitely finish that one this month. And then I started yesterday Lessons in Chemistry, and I don't know why I waited so long to read this book. I was doing a really light workout because I've been not really sick, but just mildly not feeling great. So I was just doing a really chill workout on our walking pad. I just walked for I think 45 minutes while I was reading on my Kindle, and I fell in love. I've only gotten through I think 18 or 19% at this point, but yesterday I just read the first 10%, and I have this love-hate relationship with it. I don't know how to explain it. There's a certain part that happens relatively early in the book that just hurts your heart, and I hate it, but it's written really well, and it's written in a way that makes me hate it, and I would hate this for anybody, but giving your characters kind of like a complex history and kind of explaining the era that we're in. We're in the 1950s, and so, you know, sexes aren't really equal, and there's a lot of stuff like that going on. It really makes me feel for the character, and in order to do that in the first 10% of the book, I feel like, you know, I feel like I'm just rambling, but to make me feel so connected to the main character within the first 9-10% of the book, I feel like is an accomplishment. And then there is a male protagonist as well, and we also kind of start to get to see his background and his story, and you also kind of start to connect with him as well. But I feel like something's gonna go wrong. I just don't know where, and I don't know. I'm just really interested. I also went to school for a biochemistry degree. Obviously, times have definitely changed since the 1950s. I was definitely not the only woman around, but it's really interesting getting this perspective, and I think it's fun seeing the main character is really into like cooking and stuff and talks about, oh, cooking is chemistry. Because one of my favorite shows as a kid was Alton Brown's show, what was it called? Good Eats. And he would explain the chemistry behind like what he was cooking and stuff. And so her show kind of reminds me of that. And I don't know if that's where the author drew inspiration, but that is definitely what it's reminding me of. And I love it. It gives me that like nostalgic feel for both college and my childhood. I don't know. It's just hitting the feels. I predict this could be a 5-star book, but we'll see. Anyway, I have a little bit of time before I need to go to bed, so I think I'm just gonna continue reading that on the Kindle for a little bit. I've been talking for a hot minute, so I'm sorry if this intro was super long. Hopefully I have some B-roll that I can like intersperse so that you're not just looking at my face the whole time. But yeah, I will see you when I have another update, which will hopefully be sooner than another 2 weeks. I will try to update more. My goal for this readathon is I'm kind of doing light reading until the last week of December. I have the whole week off, so I'm hoping I can do a little bit more reading then. I kind of want to do a 24-hour readathon during that week, but I feel like that's a little extreme. So I might just have a day where I just do nothing but read all day. I wake up and I just read until I go to bed, because honestly, I feel like I just need one of those days. Work has been a lot lately, and it would be nice to just kind of relax and do nothing but read for a day. So maybe I'll do that. I am here with a little reading update. You might also notice my background's different. I'm kind of rearranging this room because I was getting annoyed with how it was set up. It was just feeling like really cluttered to me, and I just wasn't enjoying it. So we're switching things up, which means also there's like things all over the floor, but we'll deal with that later. Anyway, we're here to talk about reading. So I did finish one more book, and I know I said I was going to try to update you more frequently. That didn't happen. But I finished Empire of Storms, which I think is the 5th book. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's the 5th book in the Throne of Glass series. I really loved this one. I think by the end, there's a lot of strings that are, I don't want to say they're getting tied, but they're coming together. There's a lot of narratives in the previous books, including, what was the short story one? I don't even have that. Assassin's Blade, I think, where you're starting to see certain characters come together and certain like stories kind of like all come together. The ending of this definitely just makes me want to read the next book, but I have been listening to it mostly as an audiobook, and I don't have the next audiobook yet, and I need to finish all the other books first, so I don't think I'm going to read the next one yet. Probably next month. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 5 stars. It's maybe like a 4.5. It's basically a 5. We'll give it a 5. I just like seeing all the things starting to come together. And I don't want to say a whole lot more than that, just because it's so far in a series that I feel like if I say too much, it's going to ruin it. I am also reading on my Kindle Lessons in Chemistry. I think I'm about a little over 30% of the way through, and I'm really enjoying it. I don't have a whole lot else to say other than I really feel for our main character being a woman in STEM and the things that she's going through I don't know, I really just feel for the character, and sometimes it's difficult for me to love a character or like feel like I could be in that character's place, and I really feel that with her for some reason. And so I appreciate that about this book, and I think it makes it more interesting to me and make me want to continue reading. So that said, I am gonna go sit in bed for a little bit before I go to sleep and do a little bit more reading. On that note, I started a new audiobook. I am reading the Witcher book, The Time of Contempt, which does have multiple POV, so I am glad I chose that for that prompt. So we're reading that. I'm already like 25% of the way through. It's definitely a lot shorter of an audiobook than Empire of Storms, so I think I can get through that one pretty quickly. I also, from Libby, got another book that I'm reading, but I can't remember which one. What is it called? Like, I can see the cover. Immortal Longings. I also got that from Libby. I just checked it out, so I have 21 days to listen to it. There's not even 21 days left in December at this point. So I might listen to that or I might read it physically, but I wanted to give myself the option because I've been working through the audiobooks pretty quickly. I might end up listening to that one. So we will see. Good morning. This is a weird camera angle and lighting. That's because we have these like RGB lights on the wall and they're currently a blue color. So everything looks very blue this morning. That's why. I just want to update you on my reading. I did finish reading Time of Contempt as an audiobook, so I finished listening to it. It did go by quickly because I was listening to it at 1.5 times speed, but I will say I didn't love it. I think it has the benefit of me having watched the show, and so I already kind of knew what was going on. It seems that the second season really followed this book. Ugh. Sorry, I was sitting on this and was not comfortable. And so I kind of knew it was coming, and I don't know if that made it easier for me to listen to because I didn't need to pay too much attention, or if it made it more difficult to listen to because I already knew what was going to happen, so I was getting bored. I will say during maybe like a third of this book in the middle, I was not very excited. Like the beginning was good, the end was good, but in the middle, I just felt kind of like slowed down and uninterested. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when I go on to the next one where I don't know if anything in that one has been covered in the TV show yet. But the reason I wanted to read these books in the first place, I haven't played the video games or anything, but I really enjoyed the TV show. And so then I thought, well, they're changing the actor and I don't know, maybe I'll try to watch it, but I feel like it's going to feel wrong and weird. So I figured I would read or listen to the books. But the way they're written, it feels strange to me, but I believe they're also a translation. And so part of me wonders if that's part of why it feels strange. So it's hard to say. I'm giving it a 3 stars. It wasn't excellent. It wasn't horrible, but it's just kind of like right in the middle. It's just kind of, it's okay. So anyway, hopefully the next book I will enjoy more. I did start listening to Immortal Longings, which I actually have over here. So it was really good timing. I do have this physically, but I also checked it out on Libby, and I had to wait a couple weeks, but by the time it was ready for me to listen to it, it was just like a day or two before I finished Time of Contempt. So I started listening to this one now, and I'll probably listen to quite a bit of it today because today I'm focusing on cleaning the house, and I'll be making some homemade cinnamon rolls because I have family that I'm seeing Christmas Day, and we're gonna do a little like brunch, and everyone's bringing stuff, or at least like a handful of people are bringing stuff. And I was gonna do quiche, but someone else claimed that before I did, so I figured I'd make cinnamon rolls, which I tend to make every year around Christmas time, so it's kind of nice that I get an excuse to make it. The thing is, it makes a lot, so I never want to make it if it's just me and my husband eating them, because that's too much for 2 people. So I only ever make it if I know I'm gonna have family over or if I'm going somewhere where I can share with people. Normally, if I was going to work, I would also maybe take leftovers to work, but I don't have to work at all this week. So cinnamon rolls probably would be bad by the time I go back to work in the new year. Anyway, I think we'll have like 11 people at the family gathering, so hopefully we can eat through all the cinnamon rolls, or at least most of them. I will be okay if there are leftovers for me. I know this is a weird angle, but I am in the car stuck in the drive-thru for Starbucks. It is Christmas Eve and I have started reading Immortal Longings. I think I'm about 75% of the way through with it. I was doing a lot of cleaning and baking yesterday, and then I did some more cleaning this morning and was listening to it while I was driving and getting ready this morning, and I love it. It is definitely like a kind of simple story. I mean, it's definitely YA, right? But it, like, the first 25% was kind of giving Hunger Games, because there's this big game where people have to kill everybody else that's in it. There's 88 people and you have to kill the 87 other people in order to get this big cash prize. But then we have some people with ulterior motives that just want to get close to the crown in order to enact revenge, vengeance, whatever, or save somebody who's currently stuck in the hospital. There's a lot of reasons why people enter these games, but mostly it's the money. But we are following these two other characters that have different motives. And so far I'm enjoying it. I like it. Like I said, it is kind of simple, but I love books that have to do with like games and stuff. And obviously there's some like politics and stuff coming into play, but this is going to be a series, so I feel like that's going to come into it more in the following books, and now we're just kind of like setting up. So I'm curious to see what happens in other books, because I'm assuming this book we're going to finish this game, someone's going to win. Don't know who that's going to be, because we have these two people pairing up, but only one person can live. Another reason it's kind of giving Hunger Games. But yeah, it's a fun, easy fantasy book. Good morning. Today is the day after Christmas. I had a really nice day yesterday, and I hope you all did too. But that does mean I only have one more week of this readathon, so I'm gonna get on it. I have finished several books. I don't even remember at this point, but I still have to finish Immortal Longings, Monstrous, my short story collection field, and Demon Copperfield. I'm kind of thinking though that I might exchange Demon Copperfield for Fourth Wing, because I bought a copy of that, and there's I think 2 dragons on the front of the cover, like little baby ones, so I might swap those so that I can read Fourth Wing sooner. I don't actually know if I'm going to enjoy this book. I've heard a lot of like mixed things, like some people love it and some people absolutely hate it, so I'm honestly just intrigued. I think I saw it also as an audiobook on Audible, so I may also listen to it as an audiobook versus reading it physically, just because I'm going to kind of go out and about and run errands today, so if I finish Immortal Longings, I might want to start that. But anyway, this morning I kind of just want to chill and read something simple, so I'm going to read Monstrous, and I will hopefully finish this in one setting. Like I said, I'm going to go run errands today, but I just want to do some reading this morning, and it's only like 6:45 this morning, so nothing's gonna be open for a couple hours anyway, so why not just like read an entire book? I think it's a great way to spend my morning. I was trying to find an angle where I don't have light reflecting on my glasses, but that doesn't really seem to exist, so we're just gonna have to deal with it. So I did end up finishing Monstrous yesterday morning, and then I got distracted and didn't film my thoughts. I did enjoy it as always. The art in Monstrous is absolutely beautiful, but I feel like at this point in the series, I need to like reread the previous books to remember what's going on, because it was a little bit hard to follow. Like, I feel like I maybe understand half what was going on. And I feel like because of that, maybe my rating of it is a little bit lower, but it seemed like when I went on Goodreads, a lot of people had the same issue of they're kind of like, I don't know what's happening right now. So I'm glad at least it wasn't just me. So I gave that a 3.5 star. So I rounded up to 4 on Goodreads, but it was a nice quick read, because next we're going to tackle a big book. I am about halfway through, I think, this short story collection, and these are like old short stories, so it's 19th century short stories. And I think what I want to try to do for the next few days, because today is the 27th, so I only have like what, 5 more days, 4 days, 4 or 5 days, I don't know. I'm gonna try to read a short story between every like task that I do. So I'm gonna start the day with a short story. And then I'll go do something else. And when I'm done with that, I'll read another short story. Even if it's just like playing video games for a couple hours. When I'm done, I'll read a short story. Because I feel like that's the only way I'm going to get through it. I have a hard time with short stories, just like reading them back to back, because I start to get bored. And they're all not connected or related in whatsoever, and especially with these ones because they are written using language that we wouldn't typically use today. And I found a lot of these short stories also use accents, and so then they're also written assuming that this person has some sort of accent, and so sometimes that makes it a little bit harder to read as well, because you're like trying to figure out what does this word mean, because it's spelled wrong in order to show that that person has an accent. So anyway, that's where we're at with reading so far. Okay, so I was chopping some potatoes to put in a crock pot to make some potato soup tonight for dinner. And while I was doing that, I was listening to Immortal Longings, and I managed to finish that book. I actually really enjoyed it, and I did not see what happened at the end. I'm obviously not going to say anything because I don't want to spoil it, but I was surprised. But like in a good way. Like I liked it, and now I'm very curious to see what's going to happen in the next book. So I am eagerly awaiting that. But I gave it 4 stars. It was a very good book. I do highly recommend it. I think I've said before, but in this world, there are certain people that are born with a gene where they can body jump, and so they can jump from like their born body into someone else's body. And so then the body that they jumped out of is now like an empty shell, and somebody else could jump into it. And then the body that they jump into could hold 2 people. And you can only be there so long before you inhabiting their body could like kill that person. So it's interesting. And then there's these games that they do where you have 88 people and you have to kill the 87 other people in order to win this award, which is basically just a bunch of money. And it's something that the government puts on, which kind of gives it Hunger Games vibes, I feel like. And then you have these 2 people that kind of like join forces, and I don't know, it gets interesting and a little bit political, but I do think it was a really fun fantasy read. And once I finished that, I started Fourth Wing. I only listened to like 20-30 minutes of it, so I'm not far. So far it seems interesting, but because I'm not very far, it's hard to really make any judgment. Okay, so I just read The Two Offers by Frances Harper. Can't tell if you can see that. I hope so. I actually really enjoyed this short story. This is probably one of the better ones that I feel like I've read in this. There's been some good ones, but this one I thought was interesting. So in the beginning, you have this woman, Laura, and she's trying to decide between 2 marriage proposals. And I don't know who it is, her brother or someone comes in and says, maybe if you are so undecided about who to marry, you shouldn't marry either of them, because clearly like you don't really have love for either of these men if it's a difficult decision. But then her argument is that she does not want to become an old maid, and if she refuses these 2 offers, she doesn't know if she'll get any others. And then the story goes on to tell about this other woman who is married and has a child, and the child makes her super happy. And then basically this child dies, and she becomes super sad. And at first her husband comforts her and is there for her, and then he slowly just kind of like disappears and ignores her. And it kind of sounds like that's how he was at the beginning of their marriage before the child as well. And she just starts slowly declining. She goes back to her family, and they do their best to cheer her up, but she eventually dies and is forgotten by her husband. He never comes to see her on her deathbed or anything. And then our original lady, after hearing this story or seeing this story, decides it doesn't matter if she gets married, because getting married and being miserable is no worse than being an old maid. So she becomes an old maid, but she decides to live her life helping others. She, it sounds like, feeds the poor and does stuff like that, and there's a lot of people loving her even though she isn't married. So she gets love and affection from people in a different way, and maybe in a better way than if she had married somebody that she didn't really love or connect with. So, a story with a moral, but I thought it was a good one, and it was only like 10 pages long. It was not very long. So on to the next thing. I think I'm going to do a little workout, and I think I might just do go for a walk and read lessons in chemistry while I'm walking. We have this little walking pad that I've been using, so I think I'm going to do that so I can read while getting some steps in. I don't know why, but I really like reading when it's so dark outside and seeing the sun come up. There's something just very peaceful and relaxing about it. Okay, it is now, well, I don't have my watch on. I was going to look at the time. I think it's almost 5. I've been going back and forth between reading short stories and lessons in chemistry all day today while doing some other things. I did a little workout, played some video games for a little bit. I'm getting close to the end of this. I think I have about 88 pages to go, which isn't too bad. And lessons in chemistry, I was walking on our little walking pad as just an easy workout that I could do while also reading. We have this little tool bag right in front of it, and so I'm able to set my Kindle on it, so I just have to tap the screen while I'm walking. I think there's also things that you can get where you can press a button, there's a remote or a clicker thing, so maybe I'll look into getting that. But I am 85% of the way through with this, so I'm gonna do a little more reading, but I'll be eating dinner soon. Hopefully I can finish one of these, if not both of these tonight. We will see. I might have a little bit of time to do reading tomorrow, so whichever I don't finish, hopefully I can finish tomorrow. But it's crazy that December is almost over. I feel like this year went by really slowly, but also really fast at the same time. It's kind of crazy to think of all the things that happened this year. I've been to so many weddings, had my own wedding and reception and stuff, but yeah, anyway, it's an interesting time of year thinking about everything that's happened previously and everything that I'm hoping to accomplish next year. Sorry, you're gonna get my phone for this because I am out of memory space on my memory card and my camera. I just finished lessons in chemistry, and I will say I really enjoyed the book. I was just looking through some of the people's reviews on Goodreads, and some were great and some were real bad. And it was interesting because I agree with both. I do think that there were some things that were really cringy about the book, like the main character uses chemical names for things like sodium chloride instead of just saying salt. It's pretty cringy. That's unnecessary to do when you're at home and you're just talking about food. As someone also who has a biochemistry degree and works in science, that's just not something that we do. And I know that maybe the author's trying to make her seem quirky, but it was weird and cringy. And the other thing that stood out to me was there's a scene where she was in her lab and she walks out with her lab coat and wears it in her car and then wears it into someone's office. That's not what you do. If you're working in a lab, you leave your lab coat in the lab or outside of your lab. You do not wear that into personal spaces because you could be contaminating wherever you're going. And so I didn't like that. Even in the 1950s, I assume they probably had that practice of oh, my lab coat's probably dirty, I've been wearing it in the lab. I would hope. Maybe not, I don't know. So just things like that felt a bit strange. The author also did call out several times that she was super, super attractive, which was kind of unnecessary for the story. Guys wanted her, but was that actually necessary for her to be so attractive and to call it out so frequently? Probably not. But I did love the actual story. I liked portraying women trying to get degrees and being stopped because families said, no, you need to be a homemaker, you need to be a housewife, or men got in the way and did things to make them feel uncomfortable or where they needed to quit their programs. So I do think that is a realistic portrayal of things that I'm sure have happened in the past. Was she maybe a little more feminist and out there than women in the 50s would have been? Maybe. But there are radicals that have been here throughout time, so that's not to say that in the 50s there weren't feminists that weren't saying, hey, not everyone needs to be a housewife. It's possible to have a career and get an education. So, I haven't done the research. I don't really know what it was like in the 50s. as far as that. But a lot of people complained about those things, and I do understand that. People are also complaining that it goes so back and forth between like fantasy things, like getting the dog's POV and stuff like that, and things that were really dark, like suicide and rape and stuff like that. And I do understand that, but I felt personally that having the dog's point of view and having these kind of like silly little things happen kind of lightened the mood from the darker things that happened, and also kind of portrayed, well, I don't want to say it portrayed real life, that we get the dog's point of view, but there were some like little silly things that happened, and that is how life is, right? Like we have to deal with dark things like suicide, rape, family members dying, hard times at jobs and stuff like that. But like there are still going to be little parts of your life that are silly. It's not all bad, it's not all good. You have a mix of things. So I did really enjoy this book, and I did end up giving it, what did I give it? A 5-star, 4-star? I don't know. I'm kind of undecided. I think I need to think about it a bit more. I do really, really love it. Is it a 5-star? Maybe not. Maybe it's more like a 4.5. But like I do think it was a good book. I don't know. Read it if you feel like it. Is it the most realistic as far as science goes? Probably not. The research she's trying to do is stuff that scientists have dedicated their entire lives to, and then she's also doing all this stuff on cooking. But I mean, I was also really interested in the science of cooking at a young age and taught myself a lot. So I mean, you can have multiple interests and you can know a lot about different things. So that's not to say it's not possible. But anyway, those are my thoughts. Still not sure how I'm going to rate that, but probably like a 4.5. So I'll probably round up on Goodreads to a 5-star. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking now because I've been talking for a hot minute, and I'm going to read another short story because I need to get through a few more. Today is New Year's Eve, which means I have hardcore been reading since I've gotten home from doing church stuff, but I am leaving in an hour or two for a New Year's Eve party. So I did manage to finish Fourth Wing. I got this holiday version of it, and it's so pretty. And then I just realized it says that there's bonus content included. I might just read that later because for the sake of this challenge, I did technically read the entire book. Because I listened to it as an audiobook. So I read like the normal version, but in the back here, there's like a couple extra chapters, I think. It says 2 exclusive chapters from Zayden's point of view in print ever for the first time. But then I kind of feel like, was the last chapter? Because I thought the last chapter was from his point of view. But maybe it's not that. Anyway, I'm going to read that later. I'm going to count this as having been read because when I listened to it as an audiobook, it didn't have the bonus content, and we'll just read those last few pages later. I also just now finished this short story collection, and I'm going to give it, I think, like a 4-star. By the way, Fourth Wing is also a 4-star. I'll get into that in a minute. Some of these stories, great, loved them. Other ones, kind of difficult to read. Not my vibe, but they are from the 19th century, and so, like I've said before, the language that they use is different than the language we use today, which does make it a little bit more difficult to read some of these stories. A few in here that I actually really like is An Occurrence at Owl Creek Bridge by Ambrose Bierce. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Let me see. The Legend of Sleepy Hollow by Washington Irving. The Little Convent Girl by Grace King. The Telltale Heart, obviously, by Edgar Allan Poe. The Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County by Mark Twain. And Miss Grief by Constance Fenimore Wilson. Those were, I think, my favorite of the bunch. But yeah, overall, I'm just going to give this a 4-star. It's kind of difficult to really rate a short story collection because obviously some of them I loved, some of them were kind of a miss for me, and some of them were just kind of okay. But that's what we're going to do for this. Back to Fourth Wing, because I didn't actually talk about how I felt about it. I actually really enjoyed this, but I do understand how people might not. I haven't gone and read all of the ratings on Goodreads yet, but there's definitely some cringy parts. especially listening to it as an audiobook. There's some things that the characters say that definitely made me cringe. Some of the sex scenes also were a bit much for me, personally. Like, some people I'm sure are into that, but for me it was kind of like a little bit much. I don't really need that much. So I think I'm realizing I'm more of a closed door kind of person, or just like less description kind of person. It's fine if you're into that. The characters are obviously a little bit immature, but this is YA, so it makes sense. There was a twist in the end that I didn't, well, I saw like some of the stuff in the end happening, and I was kind of like, how did our main character not see that happening? And then there was one thing in the end that I was like, oh, I did not realize that was going to happen. But overall, I did really enjoy the story itself, which surprised me because I'm really usually not a like dragon book person. I read Aragon, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and I didn't love it. I thought it was a boring book series, which is maybe a controversial take. This I definitely prefer to Aragon if we're talking about dragon books. Yeah, I don't know. There was just definitely some like cringy YA points, but I'm excited to read the second book. I gave it 4 stars, like I said. I thought it was good, not great. I think some people's arguments were like, also, why would you have a war college where so many people are dying, and why would you allow people to kill each other in the ranks? Like, it doesn't make sense, which is a totally valid point. If you need people fighting, why are you killing so many of them before they can even get to the front lines? Like, doesn't make sense. I understand that it ups the stakes in our story, but like politically and logically, it doesn't make any sense. But anyway, if you suspend some disbelief and ignore those things, it's an entertaining book. I had fun, and I will be reading the rest of the series. So that said, I don't even remember what prompts those were for at this point anymore, but I'll put the little thingy up. I think that means I have finished all the books that I set out to read, which means I can do the prompt slaying it, which is reading a book for one of those prompts and just get 50 points for it. So I'm going to do the prompt of reading a book with a title with more than 5 words. I have this book of poetry called My Father's Eyes, My Mother's Rage. I was getting a lot of this poetry on my Instagram, and I liked the few things that I saw, so I bought it. I already have read a little bit, honestly not much. I read 30 pages earlier this month because I just wanted to, you know, get a glimpse of it. But I might be able to finish this in the next hour or two. It's only 240-ish pages, and a lot of the pages aren't full pages, and it's poems, so it reads relatively fast. So I'm gonna try to finish this today. We'll see if that happens. So I'm gonna stop talking so I can get to reading. All right, I'm back, and I finished the book. I am giving it a 4 stars. I don't really know how to rate poetry because I don't know. It's like, not like it needs to be written in a specific meter or anything to be meaningful. I will say some of those poems were so short that they like, to me, didn't have a ton of meaning. But I did tab a few that I especially liked or related to. This poetry book in general kind of dealt with like trauma. So trigger warning for that, I guess. So the first section is Roots of Pain, which is mother and father, like, you know, toxic love. Talked about like toxic dating, depression, anxiety. There is a trigger warning in the beginning of this poetry book, so definitely read that before reading this book. I do think it's also self-published because I don't see anything about a publisher anywhere in here. I did buy it on Amazon. It's by Rose Brick if you're interested. If you didn't have a great childhood or had a toxic relationship with one or both of your parents, you may relate to some of these in here. Or if you had toxic boyfriend or girlfriend relationships, again, you might relate to some of the things in here, or anxiety, depression, etc. Overall, it was an enjoyable read. Typically, I would read through poetry a little bit slower, but for the sake of this challenge, I was just trying to get through it. I did actually read every single one though. Like I said, some of these were like 1 or 2 lines, and so it went by very quickly. Rarely did any of them take up an entire page. Like this is probably one of the longest ones in here is this guy. So yeah, anyway, it was a nice little book to end my year of reading. And with that, we are done with this challenge. I'm gonna go put all my points in and log all that so that my team will get credit for all of my reading, because I think the last time I saw on the last update, we are in last place currently, but I've also not been good at updating, so maybe other people also haven't been good. I've been trying to update every week, and even then I've not been the best. So anyway, that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you did for more bookish content, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!